It's needless to say that a lot happened in 2019, and a sudden virus made a lot of things grind to a halt and started gnawing at the fabric of our otherwise completely perfect and flawless society. And everyone started realizing some flaws. With the help of Instagram infographics, we began to learn a lot about social justice issues. So infographics are essentially collections of like images, charts, minimal text that give you an easy to understand overview of an issue or topic. People from around the world could learn about social justice movements, unfortunately mainly in the US, with bold graphics and aesthetic 10-slide threads that gave you a bite-sized briefing on the next thing that you should care about. Instagram, which was once like an apolitical place where people could come to just look at morning smoothies, was now a place for you to look at your morning news. Everyone from celebrities to friends was sharing pictures about all the horrible stuff going on in the world, or again, at least in the US. I swear, it's like we've all put the US up as this benchmark of the most terrible place in the world and completely looking over all the other stuff going on, especially here in the UK. People tend to be like, oh, the US is so bad, but they literally only just got independence from you and you're kind of cousins or something like that. Basically, anyone who didn't post about these things was deemed a jerk, or their reputation could be burned at the stake, because why don't you care enough about these issues to post them? Why don't you talk about anything? Why don't you use your platform? The amount of times I heard the words use your platform in 2020. It kind of worries me that people don't seem to be talking enough about how this slight shift in how we consume news and media and crises has evolved thanks to what some are calling the infographic industrial complex, and how it'll have a big ripple effect over the next couple of years. Although actually by the time I'm making this video, even though I've been sitting on this script for like 3 months, Amanda Mariana has also made a video discussing this topic, which I highly recommend you watch after you watch this video. Don't go away right now. But before my pessimism takes over the bulk of this video, let's talk about some of the positive of Instagram infographics. So infographics were and are an important tool to introduce people to social justice issues that they care about on a platform that they're already used to. So the colors and the fonts are eye-catching and palatable, and this is a strategy borrowed from like big brand marketing, so a consumer is easily reeled in just from the colors or just from the aesthetic alone, and then they get to read and actually learn something in some cases. As weird as it is to say, people like to keep like their Instagram feeds neat and cute, so instead of the usual like shock horror imagery we're used to associating with like tragedy, the Insta infographic just sums up the issue without always having to use like devastating images or like the conscious use of trigger warnings where they're necessary. And for those with the talent, illustrations of, say, victims instead of, pictures of them in their moment of trauma in ways that help humanize them and humanize the situation instead of just seeing like a body being traumatized. And frankly, I appreciate this as opposed to like the very, I think, virality of videos of traumatic events, I think stemmed from like 2010 Facebook, where everyone was just sharing everything for the sake of sharing it without trigger warnings, without descriptions, without anything. It was just like there in your face, or you've already downloaded this thing to your phone and people are just sharing it, and oh my god, just the shock value of it and not really taking in the seriousness of the issue. That seems to have developed what we see now of, oh, if I haven't seen it, it didn't happen. Oh, why don't you have evidence of this such and such a thing happening? Sharing videos like that often lacks context. Like if a person randomly sends you something with no caption, you're not immediately aware of their sentiment towards the video. Like, are they saying this is a bad thing? Or are they waiting for you to reaction? A common case of this is like news and gossip platforms like The Shade Room that just post things that they know is going to incite hateful comments. But the infographic is the context. So it is like, hey, this thing is going on. Here's a bit of a brief explanation on that. Here's what you should know in 10 easy bullet points or something, and it's like digestible in that way. A short history of why this thing is bad and how this thing has been going on for ages and etc., which is really good. So since the Instagram infographics insurgence, have we seen change? It really depends who you ask and where you look. I would say my personal life, it has kind of changed. Like it was kind of even if you wanted to avoid it, if you were on the internet from anywhere between April last year to now, you would have seen at least one at least one. For me, that has sparked like some, discussions about things with people I know. It helped weed out some bigots, very good for that. And some long-term activists, like people who've been working towards things for a very long time, have seen, finally got their flowers, finally got some recognition for their issues, gained a bigger platform, whether that be the form of followers and the form of speaking opportunities. Whether they use those speaking opportunities well or not is an entirely different video. The infographic obviously has its limitations, which I will now get into. So the appeal of Instagram is its accessibility, but at some point it's important for the person to go away from Instagram and actually look for further detail. So like video essays like this one, or articles or books, or as well as like just not limiting it to your phone, like talking to your kids, talking to your partners, confronting your own personal biases, and not just looking at the content as feel-good material for you to be like, well, maybe I'm racist, but I'm not killing people or something like that. I don't know how people are taking these things, but not everyone is doing that. Not everyone has the opportunity to go and do that and do the reading and do the learning. And the infographic has sort of like spawned this way to virtue signal whether or not you're a good person. So whether or not you're sharing all the good posts and the good things, and or liking the right tweets and then immediately liking a bigoted or homophobic tweet right under that or something like that. The hypocrisy is appalling. Another tool that's grown in popularity alongside the Instagram infographic is the petition. There is widespread debate about whether or not petitions actually work. I don't even know whether or not petitions actually work, and I've sat down and thought about this and like researched for this video. Sometimes people do mean well when they start petitions, but they just don't understand how exactly they are meant to work and where they are meant to work and when they can be used effectively. Sometimes they just have no weight because a person in a different region has signed a petition for somewhere else because they do happen to care about the issue, but it doesn't work like that. Or people ending up faking postcodes. I don't think that was ever very helpful. It is a good petition, well researched and well backed by like grassroots activism, and then the government just gives up a very vague response or just decides not to talk about in Parliament because a similar thing has been raised before, and the thought isn't, hey, maybe people are actually concerned about this and we should revisit it. It's we've already discussed this years ago and we don't care. Then there are the donation pages, which are frustrating for many reasons, because the poor are so willing to help each other out, more willing than the social services that should already exist to help. Like even the founders of GoFundMe at some point have realized like the influx of GoFundMe pages being made since the start of the pandemic is appalling. But yeah, crowdfunds, petitions, infographics often have started to like go hand in hand. While I'm not going to go into the fact that it is kind of dangerous that anyone can make a petition for anything, the question of whether they actually work is, still up there. I think at some point the infographic has helped to exaggerate the amount of power a petition can have, because it's not going to have that much significance if it's just a petition that's been started out of thin air without actual like canvassing, grassroots work being done behind an issue. It's also bred, again, the slacktivism, as it's being termed, of, well, I've signed 10 petitions today, that's my work done, then doing nothing else at the end of the day. And even there was a point I remember where people were like, oh, show me how many petitions you've signed today. Are you kind of like, are you a good person? This moral standing thing of like, oh, have you signed? Like, it's great to sign petitions, but if you're only signing petitions and doing nothing else, no other discussions in your life, there are daily changes we can make in our lives. But if you are inflating your ego by believing that you're doing the very best by, oh, look, I put this post on my Insta story, I put this, I have a Black Lives Matter card in my bio, I'm doing the very best, and then when you see someone being bigoted in real life, you say nothing. I too am not presenting myself as a perfect person, by the way. Anyone who regularly watches this channel will know that I primarily make these videos to find like a community. Like I like forming community in the comments and talking about these things. And I will admit that there have been times in my life where I could have said something, or I could have done something when someone was saying something inappropriate. And maybe because of fear, or maybe because of wanting to be accepted, I didn't say anything. Sometimes even the posts encouraging people to to realize racial microaggressions or something. Sometimes I've had those experiences happen to me and have been too afraid to say something, felt too disempowered to say something. So if a person can pacify themselves to that degree, imagine how much more you have stayed silent when it's come to issues about other people. But basically, the pros and cons of petitions are too complex to discuss in the length of this video, and it's still a heavy debate. But if it's within reason that you are within the region where this petition is being run or the area affected by the issue, and it's maybe being started by an organization you know and you trust enough to donate to, and you have that disposable income, then I highly encourage people to do that. Now, getting back to the point I said earlier about aesthetics helping make things palatable, there are two sides to that coin too, because the idea that the infographic is modeled after marketing also means that big business can market themselves as all the good things that are happening now. So pro-environment, anti-racist, everything, and still not actually do any action. But hey, they have these cute snazzy pics on their Instagram page, so surely they have actual inclusivity and sustainability embedded in their business, right? Because of course they want to persuade you as much as possible that they are good people and you should shop with them. Another thing is we have to consider why the infographic has spawned, so why it's important to make these things aesthetic. I don't like the sharing of trauma on my timeline. I don't need to see to believe that someone has been hurt. I can read a text, I can read an article without having to see the pictures and believe someone's pain. I don't need to, because I feel like people in the end are becoming too desensitized to this stuff. But then the reason why Instagram infographics end up being made so palatable is because otherwise the algorithm will not share them. Like, I don't think enough people realize just how much censorship a lot of people have to do to themselves and to the content that they post on these platforms. If you are making your full living on sites like these and you get demonetized because you're talking about an issue, which it's unfair. So of course with Instagram you also have to make yourself user friendly, advertiser friendly, so that the algorithm can boost your page and your message can get across to more people, because otherwise you end up shadow banned, which basically means that you are posting but even people who follow you can't see your posts because they are just so out of the way and not what the platform wants. And there's still a huge debate of course it's a private platform, they can do what they want, they can decide who they kick off their page, they can decide who gets popular on their page, they already do that. But then at the same time, when we're living in a world where at this point with most social platforms it's almost become a must that you are on the platform and you kind of can't avoid it, especially if you're younger, do we want to have that high degree of censorship where even people who are advocating for things like equality and human rights still get their right of expression bogged down? In order to circumvent all that, the infographic has to look like a regular other post that's encouraging you to buy something. Obviously, like, content creators will have places like Patreon where they post more openly because they know they are free from bigoted comments, because the people who are most likely going to be paying to watch them speak are not people who hate them. And you can buy books, can still be published, and self-publishing and stuff like that. But again, that is up to the user to decide to go outside of the regular platforms and choosing to not just make Instagram their only source of knowledge. But again, we have to acknowledge that not everyone has that resource, not everyone has that time. The infographic exists solely because you have those 2 minutes between your lectures where you want to scroll through Instagram and you see something, you learn something that's happening somewhere else outside of you. So will Insta infographics continue to be like a jumping off platform for people to go and continue learning more? Or will they breed a new era of passive activism where people just gain social capital points by posting a black square on their timeline? Well, only time will tell. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Again, highly recommend Amanda Mariana's video on this issue. Maybe she makes more sense than me. Please leave a like, leave a comment, tell me what you think, and share this video if you think of someone else who might enjoy it. I will see you guys next time.